I'm going to call this special board meeting to order. Ms. Bowie, will you call the roll?
Good afternoon. Melissa Mason.
Here.
Josie Barnhart. Here. And Pat Bradford.
I am here.
Judy Justice.
Here.
Dr. Tim Merrick.
I'm here.
David Perry.
Here.
And Pete Wildeboer.
Present.
All right. Next up, we have the invocation and then the Pledge of Allegiance that will be led by Ms. Barnhart.
Sovereign God, you are our Lord and the keeper of our universe. Your word reminds us we are your people and the sheep of your pasture. Today, as the board begins their meeting for the betterment of our schools, we thank you for the leadership, for every teacher, every faculty and staff member, and particularly for our students. We pray for your continued protection over every campus and all of our students. We pray specifically that you will grant this board direction, wisdom, and clarity in their decision-making so that whatever decisions they make will be for the improvement and betterment of our schools. We thank you for your guidance and your loving kindness. May we forever give your name praise. Amen.
Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. I will entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Is there a second? There was two. Okay. Dr. Merrick.
Madam Chair, I would like to amend the agenda to remove the closed session based on new information and new permissions granted.
And I will second that. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? That passes 7-0. Now I will entertain a motion to approve the amended agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All right, discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Passes 7-0. Before we get started, just a couple of things. I'm going to have our attorneys receive some information before the meeting started, and so I would like for them to share it, but I just want to procedurally indicate, as we have been doing for quite some time, every board member will be given 2 opportunities to speak after a motion is made and seconded. So I'm going to ask Mr. Kromke to share with us this new information.
Good afternoon, everyone. I wanted to make sure the board is aware that we did receive a FERPA protected release, a release from Vanessa Sutton and Chris Sutton, and I'll read it out loud. The purpose of this disclosure is to allow New Hanover County Board of Education members, New Hanover County's school superintendent Christopher Barnes and members of his executive team to speak to the media and the general public about our lottery application to Eaton Elementary School in further pursuit of hearings and appeals for our son to attend Eaton Elementary School, as well as our communications with New Hanover County Schools regarding the same. So I do think this allows the board to speak about Mr. Sutton and the events that have led to what we're here for today.
Thank you. Next, did you have your hand raised?
I did. I was going to.
Mr. Wildeboer, you had a question.
If I could ask my fellow board members to have patience with me. I have several things I'd like to say. The other day I was driving in a surrounding county, drove by a new school, and I was thinking about that new school and the things that this board has to face in the future. The fact that this board has to face the possibility of new schools, the possibility of a bond, and I was thinking about today's meeting, and is this actually going to help us to get that bond, or is this going to hurt? How can we improve? What is the goal of this meeting? So I would like to offer a suggestion, and like I say, you're not going to hurt my feelings if you think it's the worst idea in the world or if you think it's a good idea. I'm going to be honest, and I know some people know that I'm a man of faith. Last words out of my mouth last night before I went to bed was, God, show me what to say today. And that's 4 o'clock this morning, 4:05 to be precise. I woke up and I have a contract that I would like to propose that we bring forth. It's a contract that I would be willing to sign. And I think it is something that could end this whole conversation pretty quickly if we agree. And if we don't, that, again, you're not going to hurt my feelings. And if you guys will allow me to read it, I think it does reflect some of the things we probably do want at the end of today.
Madam Chair, point of inquiry. Can we get that copy disseminated so we can read it? Some of us read better than we hear.
No problem.
That's going to be difficult as our copier is in this building is currently none.
Can it copy or can it not receive copies from I mean, can it just make a copy? Yeah, let me give it a whirl.
Okay. I'm sorry. I should
No,
make
that's
You
more
are,
copies.
you are fine, sir.
Yeah. And, you know, basically, I do think that this is, will, you know, appease or not appease, but get to the end goal that we were hoping for, which is, you know, all 7 of us to do the right thing day in, day out. So I think that was my thought in this. And again, please understand 100%, at the end of the day, my feelings will not be hurt if you guys say, yep, that's not a good idea, let's go on down the road. And I would be fine with that. And I do apologize for not making multiple copies. I should have thought of that, but I did not.
You're okay.
May I inquire?
So she's working on it.
Well, they're making copies of it so that we can, or they're attempting to make copies of it.
I was trying to work it, but it wasn't.
And I do
turned on.
apologize again to my fellow board members, because really I should have told you about this 3 days ago, but I didn't have this until 4:05 this morning. So, and I think it, go ahead. Wait.
I just
Dr. Merritt, go
happened to look over and notice that it said contract, and you said contract.
Mhm.
And I'm wondering, we've already all signed something around our commitment to following policy. And I don't know how this would be different, or if there would be anything punitive attached to the non-compliance thereof.
Well, great question. And if I could, thank you. You'll hear in the contract, basically, it's pointing out some specific things that maybe we didn't all know at the beginning. And it also, there's the only punitive thing in the last paragraph, it says that if we don't follow the contract, we could come back and do this, what we're doing right now, but I think this would be a great step before that. And, you know, like I say, I've always said that I'm not a big proponent of censures. I don't think censures are a very positive thing in any form or fashion. And I'm going to go back to what I said before. I think that if we get coming together to go to our county commissioners, to go to the public and say, hey, we need new schools, we need, what we heard the other day, I think we all heard from the town hall, was that we need more folks in the classrooms each and every day. And if we want to come to our county commissioners, we want to come to the public and say, hey, we need these things, I think a unified front is much, I think we get a lot more with the honey than we will with the other way. So,
Agreed.
yeah. So, and like I say, again, I'll say again, nobody's feelings hurt, if you guys don't like this idea. And if you don't mind, I'll read it once I get it back and we'll pass it out. And I think I have all the typos out of it too. Contract, August 4th, 2025. I realize, and again, I have no problem signing this myself. I realize and accept that members of New Hanover County Board of Education are role models for staff and students of New Hanover County schools. Understanding this, I agree to curb my use of profanity at Board of Education meetings and functions, and agree never to use tobacco products on any New Hanover County schools property. And again, this can be changed in any way you'd like. I further understand that though I have free speech, some negative comments I have made may have affected the system's ability to work efficiently and effectively for the betterment of all students. I agree to discuss posts and comments I make concerning board business and related business with New Hanover County Board of Education Chair before posting them or making them. Again, that does not, in my mind anyway, maybe some people will disagree with me, stop anyone's free speech. It's just saying, I'm going to bounce it off of somebody before I put it out there. 3, I understand the discussions and votes, as well as everything in closed session, is not to be discussed outside of closed session. I agree to uphold this, and if I feel that something should be discussed or shared, I will discuss it with the board and uphold the will of the board. And 4, I understand, this is the part you were just asking about. I understand that in lieu of, that this contract is in lieu of any other corrective actions by the New Hanover County Board of Education at this time, but failure to follow the contract may result in additional actions by the New Hanover County Board of Education. Again, for you to discuss, you can, I have no problem if you don't like it, and it's not going to hurt my feelings.
Ms. Barnhart and then Ms. Bradford.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate my colleague to the left, the conversation. I absolutely agree. Coming together today is so that we can continue to work effectively, and there have been multiple instances of things that have put roadblocks in place. I cannot support this as written. In particular, I'm going to be very direct of the approval by our chairperson, who happens to be a chairwoman at this time. I think having to go through an approval process before you're allowed to speak your mind is can be very problematic. And I do not want to put the chairperson in. We are already in a situation that we have elected board leaders to continue the role of good governance. And so I feel like if it's an approval process, that can be a very slippery slope. So that is my biggest red flag with this. I absolutely commend my colleague and agree with the sentiment. The whole purpose of today is how we can move forward and continue to be able to govern effectively. But that is my biggest hesitation with agreeing to this at this time.
Okay. Ms. Bradford and then Dr. Merrick.
I would agree with board member Turner. I can't support it as it's written. At first look, it reads pretty nicely, but I think it's just a little bit too late at this point. And if we're going to consider any of this, I think we should put it at the end in our deliberation, when we deliberate after we hear whatever facts there are in this hearing. Not to be surprised by this now, not to throw off on my board 4 o'clock in the morning, but I can't support it.
Okay. Ms. Justice and then, I'm so sorry, Dr. Merrick and then.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I respect and appreciate the intent of this letter. I think it needs some massaging to go along with what some of the other folks have said. I also don't think it directly relates to this meeting right now. It is something that all of us should be looking at for the future. It does need some modifications, and it's a little late to be kind of bringing this to the meeting right now. I would like to bring this up to our next meeting. It's even too late to put it on this one, but we can put it on our agenda review meeting, and I'd be all for that.
Okay, Ms. Justice and then Mr. Perry.
I really understand your sentiments, Mr. Longmore. This is something I did not want, and you've heard me vocally saying this since I've been on the board for every situation that's arisen. But this right here almost is sort of after the fact, and what it strikes me is it's going into a little more detail for what we do when we sign our code of ethics. And we didn't just sign that once. I think we signed it twice. And so, I mean, what it's going to take at this point, I guess that's why we're sitting here. But we need to do better. I hope all the people out there understand that we are working hard and that we do want what's best for the kids. I really do truly believe that. I don't think anybody up here does. So, I can't support this just because, sadly, it was, I guess you could say, a little bit too late, and we have already signed those other 2 codes. Similar.
Thank you. Mr. Perry?
I want to thank Mr. Wildeboer. I think this is, although perhaps if it was provided earlier, we would have had more time to mull over it and discuss it. I think this is something that we do need to talk about, perhaps in policy committee. I want to remind everybody, and because I've certainly made mistakes, but I want to remind everybody, and especially when it comes to rule number 3, your section number 3 about everything in closed session is not to be discussed outside of closed session. I also want to remind, that is something that is in policy 2120. But I want to remind people too that in policy 2120, under A, number 1, A number 5, it says the following statements will guide each board member in the performance of his or her official duties. The need to conduct the affairs of the board in an open and public manner, complying with all applicable laws governing open meetings and public records. This is something that we have to take seriously as well. Shoving something in the closed meeting because we prefer not to have the, and sometimes I think everybody will recognize topics have come up in closed session that really don't belong there. They're not about a particular employee. We start talking about a
Point of order,
general.
Madam Chair. And I hear what my colleague's saying, but when there is an issue in closed session, we have accountability with one another, that we have called point of order and made sure that we stay on topic to the personnel and sensitive information at hand. And so to hear my colleague discuss that we are seemingly try to get around stuff, that's what my point of order is, Madam.
All right, and that's well received, so if you could revert to.
My only point really is that I think those two things are sometimes in conflict, okay? And in that perhaps a discussion and looking at how those things could be better stated is something that the policy committee should endeavor to do. Obviously, we have a great responsibility to protect truly confidential information but we also have that responsibility to do our jobs as open and transparent of a manner as we possibly can. Thank you.
Okay. Ms. Bradford, you had a
Yes, point of
question.
information, you have attached to your agenda policy 2120, and it is on the overhead for those watching online. Felt like it was important enough that we're going to refer to it enough times that we would all have a copy of it.
Okay. And in regards to, I'm going to take my opportunity to speak as I've let everybody else go. In regards to my colleague's contract that he's brought forward, I think that is an excellent idea. I think that moving forward, we need to consider something like this. I think that perhaps the board norms weren't sufficient. Maybe they weren't specific enough. Maybe they weren't clear enough. I don't know. Maybe we need to rework them. But at this point, because of, as chair, I'm going to back up. I have had the privilege of maintaining order and maintaining board culture, I guess, and trying to establish some professional roles and professionalism in how we address ourselves. I've had the opportunity to have some really difficult conversations, with every single board member. I've had very uncomfortable conversations with every single board member on this dais, and they can attest to that. Every single board member has been mad at me for one reason or another at some point in my term as of now. And my colleague to the right is no different. I addressed concerns, and I've addressed concerns, and I've addressed concerns, and I've addressed concerns. I have done so via email. I have done so in a phone conversation. And I have given some disciplinary measures that I thought matched the issues that we were dealing with. At this point, this contract is just another giving more grace and more grace and more grace. There comes a point when grace becomes enabling. And when there are repeated infractions and repeated issues, and they've been addressed by the chair, it is it then becomes, you're fine, it then becomes the responsibility of the board to determine what the next steps are. I love this idea of a contract. I think that moving forward, we can really consider what that looks like. But for today, I'm going to have to also agree that I can't support it. I know that we kind of went off script when it came to the agenda. And so I want to kind of bring us back to talk about the breach of board policy and confidentiality that's listed on the agenda. I know that this was brought forward by the board member all the way down on my left, so I am going to, we're having some technical difficulties over there. I am going to give Ms. Bradford the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The reason we're here today is to publicly discuss the board members, our disapproval of behavior of one board member, David Perry, and discuss corrective action. And I would put to you that Mr. Perry has violated closed session confidentiality, but more importantly, he's violated his fiduciary relationship to the board, as well as violated one or more multiple policies contained in Policy 2120, Board Member Code of Ethics. So while you have a copy of them, and there's one on the board for everybody, on the overhead for everybody, specifically Section A, Board Member Ethic Requirements. The following standards will guide each board member in the performance of his or his duty. Mr. Perry has violated A2, the need to uphold the integrity and independence of the board member's office. Mr. Perry has violated A3, the need to avoid impropriety in the exercise of the board's and board members' official duties. Mr. Perry has violated A4, the need to perform faithfully the duties of the office. Additionally, Section B, specific board member commitments. In order to implement the above standards, each member has already committed to do the following, which Mr. Perry has violated. Section B5, model civility and integrity. I'm not going to read the whole paragraph, but I'm going to read the words that jump out. Engage in respectful dialogue. Comply with all board policies and set expectations for conduct. Mr. Perry has violated Section B6. Respect the confidentiality of information that's provided. Refrain from unauthorized disclosure of matters discussed in closed session. That is canonized in our policy. Mr. Perry has violated Section B7B to delegate how we delegate authority to the administration. Mr. Perry has violated Section B14. Refrain from attempting to resolve, to follow board member process to resolve concerns. Mr. Perry has violated Section B16. Avoid being placed in a position of conflict of interest. Mr. Perry has violated B18. Take no private action that will compromise the board or the administration. Mr. Perry has violated Section B19. A board member is part of a governance team. Mr. Perry has violated Section B20. Recognize that the strength of a school board is as a board, not as individuals. Mr. Perry has violated Section B21. Demonstrate respect towards our county and all persons. Mr. Perry has violated Section B24. To understand the role and not overstep as a board member, a chairperson, liaison, or an appointee or to subcommittees. So, this board member has taken his case to the media, and all the while steadfastly remained essentially defiant and unrepentant. So let's look at what's a fiduciary relationship.
Point of order. 24, I don't see it in my copy of the 2120 that I see online or in the handout.
I believe she said 22.
That you just referred to.
Okay, well, to be honest, I pulled the one off of WHQR's link in our media coverage because it was easier to print than ours, so I apologize for that, but the media had
So
it
do you know where that is?
Number 24, yeah, it's in there.
It's not listed in here.
Well, I took it, I took it off of online.
Okay.
A report by WHQR. It must have been something we proposed.
The point is well taken.
I can
okay.
drop that one, it's not a problem.
That's fine.
My bad.
Okay, thank you.
I shouldn't have done that, but the link was right there, and so much easier than going through our process and trying to deal with it. May I continue, Madam Chair?
Yes, ma'am.
Let's look at fiduciary relationship. A fiduciary relationship is defined as an obligation that prevents one party from acting in their own interest rather than that in the interest of the organization, AKA the board that they serve. So some facts. Earlier this year, we had a parent file discretionary appeal to the board over their child's school assignment by the school district. The board met in June in closed session to determine if it would hear the appeal to overrule the school assignment decision of the school district or to uphold the district. Overrule or uphold the district of the district. In closed session, the board majority voted to hear the appeal by the parent. The scheduling process began to gather a quorum of board members for the appeal, but due to what was described as leaked confidential information to the parent, the process was halted until a next closed session meeting. In addition, this parent has had quite a bit of communication with individual board members. Concern was expressed again that closed session information was being leaked to the parent. I will pause here and share that during each of these closed sessions, there was again an admonition from the attorneys and leadership to hold this information confidential, not to share it with anyone. Due to the repeated attempts by this parent to influence board members, there was ongoing concern over if there would be or could be enough impartial board members who could attend a hearing to make a quorum. In the following closed session on June 24, another attempt was made to schedule this hearing. A date and a time were set, although no solid determination was made as if we could muster a quorum of the board due to a board member family vacation plans and another family's medical emergency procedures. With attorney advice during the closed session, the board voted on one alternative to requiring a quorum. And the discussion again included leaking closed session information, who was doing it, the danger of it, as well as the consequences. Let me repeat, because of the concerns of previous breaches in closed sessions on this matter about this hearing, we were admonished by the attorney, the superintendent, and the chair not to share any information from our closed session regarding the matter. Then the board returned out of closed session to hear for the rest of our meeting, which concluded on or about 6 o'clock that evening. However, the news media states, I don't have the documentation for it, but the news media states that at 5:05 on that same day, Mr. Perry chose to text the parent to tell him his assignment appeal would be on this date and this time. Literally minutes after the strong admonition not to share information in closed session, while the meeting was still underway, Mr. Perry willfully chose to text the parent and leak what was confidential at the time, the decision of the board, with him. We only learned of it after the superintendent contacted the parent, and then the staff contacted the parent following procedure, and to be told both times that the parent already knew the information from a board member. Then, on Tuesday, as he stood outside the Board of Education Center, while the rest of us were in our last closed session, Mr. Perry admitted to the media that he had done this, and his words, as I quote, "I didn't think anything of it." Mr. Perry was also quoted by the media saying he was so concerned about the parents' anxiety over the hearing date and time that he texted the parents. In doing so, Mr. Perry willfully violated closed session, our policies, and he usurped the authority of the appropriate staff members to handle administrative business. Mr. Perry has described his relationship to the parent as being an acquaintance. It grieves me that Mr. Perry would put his concern for an acquaintance ahead of his fiduciary relationship to the board. This continues to be an ongoing concern and evidence that it was not the only closed session information that has been shared. Some new evidence came out today. In earlier discussions with the board...
Point of order. What new evidence?
Sir, I believe she's going to address that. Is that correct, Ms. Bradford?
Yes, ma'am. Mr. Perry said he probably shouldn't have done it. He said, Barnes did it, why can't I? I informed them of information they eventually would have gotten. Nonetheless, just prior to the hearing, Mr. Perry swore an oath with us in the hearing that he would be objective. And I suggest, I don't have proof, but that at the very least, they demonstrated a lack of professional conduct and integrity. In a social media post, following the curriculum committee's recommendation regarding a book, Mr. Perry publicly accused the curriculum committee of being disrespectful to the board. Mr. Perry's authority, all of our authority, to speak about
Point of order.
stops with the superintendent.
Point of order.
Pause. Yes, sir.
The agenda states that we are here to be talking about an issue of confidentiality and the release of closed session information. This is not a fishing expedition, or it is not on the agenda as let's pick a zillion different things and throw the kitchen sink at David Perry. That's not on the agenda. If you'd like to do that, then perhaps schedule another meeting.
I'm going to say that this meeting, it says on here, breach of board policy and confidentiality. Ms. Bradford, if you could tie it into the policy, that would be appreciated. And that way we are not, we are still abiding by what the agenda states, and it's.
If you go back to policy 2120, it's, well, engaging respectful dialogue, that's probably there. It's here. Refrain from attempting to resolve, avoid being placed in a conflict of interest, demonstrate respect to the county and all people. It's a pattern of disrespect for the administration, and our authority stops with the superintendent. We speak to the superintendent, he speaks to everyone else. When we publicly condemn a staff member or a committee, we are breaching our policy 2120, and we're breaching our fiduciary relationship to the board. So, back to what I was saying. In making accusations that imply employees violated policy should not be stated publicly on social media. Mr. Perry didn't attend that meeting. He didn't go to the staff to seek the documentation of what he thought had happened, of the claim he was making, before he put it on social media. And I totally agree that there have been multiple other objectionable actions, shared opinions, plus foul and unbecoming language by Mr. Perry during board members. It shows a pattern of violation of policy 2120, as well as disrespect for the authority of not only the board's elected leadership, disrespect for the superintendent and the senior staff as well. All of his actions and words exhibit a rebellious spirit, violate his fiduciary relationship to the board, including his willful disregard of the sanctity of closed session confidentiality. So last week, Board Member Merrick asked me on the phone, what do I want to accomplish in this hearing? What outcome was I looking for? And I'd like to see, well, I'd like to I want it to be firmly established that we have no double standard. Board members are held accountable when they thumb their nose at their fidelity to the board, when they thumb their nose at the confidentiality of our closed session, when they thumb their nose at the authority of our superintendent's staff, or thumb their nose at the authority of our duly elected school board chair and vice chair, present or future. For us as board members to permit these things to continue is knowingly partner with lawlessness, which harms children, and I will not be a part of it. So I'd like to see some corrective action to answer Mr. Perry's concerns. And with that, Madam Chair, I will yield.
I saw Dr. Merrick had his hand up.
Yes, I would, I know this is quite late, but seeing the potential conflict with our agenda that just took place, I would like to move to amend our agenda, even though that will take a supermajority vote, to be able to discuss more broadly some of the actions that have concerned the board. This is not speaking to outcome, it's not speaking to what the actions will be taken at the end of the meeting, but my biggest concerns are with the way that certain parents have been treated. And I'd like to be able to have discussion amongst the board about such things without it being considered not part of our agenda. I would like to expand the agenda to include different behaviors that may or may not be directly found in our policies.
Okay, there were three hands all up at once. I'm going to go Mr. Perry, Ms. Barnhart, and then Ms. Bradford.
Well, I respect that the agenda could have been stated in such a more broad way. The fact is that it was stated in a very specific way as to cover confidentiality in closed session. So what I prepared for today was to address those topics, not the whole gamut of everything in 2120 about 16 things that Ms. Bradford is laying off that could pretty much amount to anything. So I mean, if we're going to do this, I think we should be doing this in a future meeting where I can prepare myself. Because so far, up until now, I haven't, other than knowing that this, obviously, the confidentiality and the disclosure of closed session information was on the table. Until now, when I asked for specifics last week at our agenda review meeting, I was not provided them. I was not provided this list by Ms. Bradford of all the things that I'm supposedly guilty of. So I need some time in order for this process to be fairly, and I can't just think on the fly on how I'm going to deal with all this. So.
Ms. Barnhart?
I concur with my colleague to the right. While I have also been frustrated with some commentary and things, the point of this meeting is so that we can continue to maintain order and operate in good governance. And so to go through a laundry list of frustrations, I don't think is going to be beneficial for this board to move forward. And so I respect my colleagues wanting to have a conversation about it and can appreciate that. However, I think that we need to talk about the functionality piece that is at hand, specifically in regards to closed session and breach of confidentiality. Thank you.
Ms. Bradford?
While I don't object to the substance of what the board member to my immediate right said, I do believe that the purpose of this hearing does cover it under policy 2120. Just kind of a point of order there. I do believe it is covered. I dug really hard into it, and the very first section B, 5, model civility and integrity to students, parents, employees, vendors, and all elements of the community. So that civility and integrity is covered here. I think that, without having discussed it with him, I think that's what he's interested in. But if he feels like that policy, it needs to be highlighted with some kind of motion, I probably wouldn't object.
Mr. Wildebohr?
I'd like to go ahead and call the question. We have a motion in front of us, and we can debate this for a half hour, but let's go ahead and.
Okay. Ms. Bowie, will you call the roll? And the motion is to add.
We're voting on the calling the question?
Yes, we're voting on the calling the question, which ends all discussion of the agenda change. So if you could call the roll, please.
Ms. Mason?
Yes.
Ms. Barnhart?
Yes.
Ms. Bradford?
Yes.
Ms. Justice?
Yes.
Dr. Merrick?
Yes.
Mr. Perry?
Point of inquiry, this is to call the question?
Yes.
Yes, aye.
And Mr. Wildebohr?
Yes.
Okay, that passes 7-0. So now we have the motion to, Dr. Merrick, can you restate it, please?
Motion is to amend the agenda to allow more than simply closed session material to be discussed in regards to our concerns about behavior from Mr. Perry.
Okay. Ms. Bowie, will you call the roll on that one?
Ms. Mason?
I'm going to have you come back to me, if that's all right.
Mr. Perry?
Nay.
Ms. Justice?
Yes.
Ms. Barnhart?
No.
Mr. Wildebohr?
No?
Dr. Merrick?
Yes.
Ms. Bradford?
Yes.
And Ms. Mason?
No, but that passes 4-3. Did it? Oh, you're corrected. That is correct. I'm sorry. That does not pass. Thank you.
Madam Chair?
Ms. Bradford.
Point of order, I reiterate what I just said. It's covered under the policy violations. It's covered under the heading for the board. And, it's out there.
Continuing on, Ms. Bradford, you've spoken once.
Yes.
Okay. And Mr. Perry has had the opportunity to speak once. I want to provide all board members with the opportunity to speak. Ms. Justice, is there anything you would like to add or
You want me to
discuss?
start, or you said?
Yes. As it pertains to the breach of confidentiality, breach of board policy and confidentiality.
Breach of board policy, confidentiality. I am extremely disturbed about what's gone on since we were sworn in. I don't know what else to put it. We all are on a learning curve. We all are going to make mistakes. We need to work together, and I've said this, you guys are probably sick of hearing me say it. We need to work together for what's best for the kids. We need to put aside so many other things. But there is some behavior that if it continually repeated needs to be addressed, especially if it doesn't get better but gets worse. And that's what, as far as this violation of the policy goes, has been going on, sadly, with Mr. Perry. I don't even know where to begin. That multiple times he's overstepped his bounds. What really disturbs me is the way he neglects his role as a board member and observes what's going on with the superintendent and the staff. It also disturbs me the way
Point of order.
That's part of what we're talking about.
Order.
Yes, Mr. Perry.
We just ruled not to expand, we just voted not to expand the agenda to include every little thing other than the supposed breach of confidentiality in closed session and confidential information. I need a ruling from the chair to please state that this other stuff is out of order.
I find that your point of order is not well taken. It is covered under the breach of board policy. Continue, Ms. Justice.
Point of order, may I ask to get our attorney's view of that?
Attorneys?
I think it's germane. I mean, the reason I would say that, look at 2120A, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. 3 and 4 kind of cover the general fiduciary duties that you've got. I mean, they're almost a restatement of a common law, particularly number 4. But that's my take. It's a judgment call for the chair, but there's certainly nothing wrong with concluding it's germane.
Thank you. Ms. Justice, please continue.
We are.
Point of order. I would like to challenge the ruling of the chair by vote.
Okay, so there is a challenge of the ruling of the chair. And I have to try and remember if I get this correct. If you believe that my ruling was correct, you vote no. If you believe my ruling was incorrect, you vote yes. Ms. Bowie, will you call the roll on that?
Ms. Bradford?
No.
Dr. Merrick?
No.
Mr. Wildebohr?
Could you say that one more time? I want to make sure I'm saying the right vote here.
So it's essentially a motion, if I'm explaining it correctly, and his motion is to challenge my ruling. So if I am incorrect and you agree with his challenge to my ruling, then you vote yes. If you agree with my ruling, you vote no.
No.
Okay.
Ms. Mason?
No.
Ms. Barnhart? Ms. Justice?
No.
And Mr. Perry?
Aye.
Okay, that fails, Ms. Justice. You may continue.
Yes, more than anything, I care about what's going on in the classrooms in our schools with our kids. Our staff has to be respected and supported, definitely our superintendent. We shouldn't be going behind their backs and performing their duties. We shouldn't be sitting up here and saying words that we would not allow them to say in the classroom, or they would probably be fired. And not just once, but repeatedly. We wouldn't allow our staff to make derogatory comments about certain segments of society, not just once, but more than once. They would be fired. So if we're not walking the walk, why would we expect our staff to do so? And as far as the breach of confidentiality, that's another example. That was not his job. He keeps saying, why couldn't I do it? Because you were elected to sit on this board and make decisions. You weren't elected to do the job of our staff. That undermines our staff's authority. And from what I'm hearing, it was only by something like 30 minutes or so. So I think that the nervous parent could have survived. I would love not to have done this. I begged you a couple weeks ago not to. But then on Tuesday during agenda review, I was called a very derogatory term, not just me, but several people. And then Mr. Perry walked out and didn't even participate because he was so upset and didn't feel comfortable. If you're elected to an elected position, if you're mature and going to represent people, you got to get yourself together. You got to act appropriately. And this has been going on for months. It's not just 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 instances. It's a lot more. So I don't want to have to, I guess the word censor or whatever, anybody. But if you won't change your behavior, I have no other clue as to how to maybe get you to change your behavior. In many ways, Mr. Perry works very hard and cares about the students, but he needs to look at what his behavior is as a reflection of this board and our district. And that's what's more important. He's not running for office anymore. He has certain restrictions because he took that oath and he signed that ethic pledge. So that's how I feel about this. I didn't want it to happen, but now that it is, it needs to go on. And maybe at this point, maybe he will learn. Just like our kids, some of them are a little harder than you to learn. When they do, a lot of times they learn better than anyone else. So maybe that'll work. Thank you.
So we have not, I'm trying to recall previously how we've done this, and I know that action is after all of this discussion. And so I'm kind of talking it through for myself, I'm sorry. I'm going to share some of my information since this is related to the breach of board policy and confidentiality. The communications that I shared with the board prior to, well, after all of this happened. So on Friday, June 27th, at 3, I sent out an email as I had been notified that there were some concerns regarding some shared information. And if you will grant me, I will read the email. I'm writing to inform you of a serious issue that requires immediate attention and action from both myself as chair and from the board collectively. Please take a moment to carefully review the attached email I received last night. To summarize, for those who may not have time to read the full message, confidential information discussed during a closed session was disclosed to a parent. Additionally, an individual board member acted independently, assuming responsibilities that fall under the district's purview by sharing specific details with the parent. This breach of confidentiality constitutes a clear violation of board policy. As a result, I've made the decision to postpone the upcoming discretionary hearing. The rationale for this delay is that the parent has received ex parte information which compromises the impartiality of the hearing process and raises concerns about the objectivity and integrity of board members. The hearing will remain on hold until the individual responsible for the disclosure is identified and potentially removed from the appeal panel. Should this removal result in a loss of quorum, I will need to evaluate and consider next steps. If any board member can provide insight, he or she is welcome to contact me directly to resolve this matter more expeditiously. I'm going to focus on this because there have been accusations made against me, but we're not here to address those accusations made against me. After sending that out, I heard back from 4 board members indicating that they were not the individuals who had shared the information. I sent a text message and sent it to the incorrect number, so Mr. Perry did not receive it, but received confirmation from the other board member that they also did not communicate with the parent. The next time I heard from Mr. Perry was on Monday in the evening, where he indicated that he sent a text message to myself and the superintendent, indicating that he had shared with the parent the information, and because of the time frame, we had set the schedule for the hearing to occur that Wednesday. But because I did not gather that information prior to that deadline, we could not post the meeting, and so it needed to be delayed. I sent out a follow-up email on July 1st and said, "Dear board members, I'm reaching out to provide an important update following," and this was in the afternoon as well. And I believe that was Tuesday. That was a Tuesday. I'm reaching out to provide an important update following my last communication. As of last night, the individual board member who previously engaged with the parent in question has come forward. According to board policy, both the parent and the public must receive a minimum of 48 hours notice prior to any meetings or hearings. Since this information was received after that deadline, it was necessary to postpone the hearing to remain in compliance. Some concerns have been raised regarding whether I overstepped in making that decision, as it had been stated that we voted on the day and time as a board. For clarity, while the board did vote to hold the hearing, we did not vote on a specific date and time. We also voted to appoint Mr. Wildebohr as pro tem to preside over the hearing. This was the last thing I wanted to do. It is no secret that when I was running for office, Mr. Perry was a big supporter of mine. Big supporter. And it was great to have him brought onto this board. I've had that positive working relationship with him. It's been productive, it's been cordial, and I have maintained my professionalism with every board member, whether I agree with them or not. I've had several discussions with Mr. Perry along the way because I want him to succeed. I want all of us to succeed, because if one of us fails, we all do. And so this was not a decision I took lightly to even have this hearing. It was just not. Contrary to what people might think, it was not something that I took lightly. I cannot play favorites. I cannot have a standard for one board member and not another. My goal when I became the chair, and I mentioned this several months ago as well, is to treat everybody with dignity and respect. And I have tried very hard to do that when dealing with concerns that are brought to me, that are brought to my attention. I have observed in nature and in life that when somebody is accused of something, they will attack. They will go on the attack. They will go on the defensive. And so my approach has always been, this whole time, and board members can concur that this is the case, I will address you personally. I will address you in private, and I will not bring it out and make a spectacle of you. This is not what I want to do. This is the last thing I want to do. This was a board decision. This was not a Melissa decision. And I am right now seeking, after multiple attempts to work with Mr. Perry and to work with his adjustments. Let's be honest, he has taken ownership of some of the things that have happened. He absolutely has. He publicly apologized a couple months ago, and I want to commend him for that, because that took a lot of bravery and it took a lot of humility, and I appreciated it very much. But at this point, it is beyond the level where I feel as though anything that I do at this point is non-effective. So I'm going to kind of turn it over to the board to make a lot of the decision this afternoon. And I'm going to, I saw Ms. Barnhart's hand.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate the sentiment that has been said. In regards to the situation, I'm going to reiterate, and I see the parent in the audience, always keep advocating for your children. And that day that we came together, I said we were all here for the same reason, because we wanted the opportunity to hear through the situation and try to make the best decision possible. So I'm going to continue to say that, because you deserve it and so do your kids, okay? I was the person who was conducting the hearing. Before the hearing started, we had not one, but two board members stop and say, before we come to thoughtful deliberation, there needs to be an agreement and understandings that whatever said in here does not get repeated. Because many times, and this doesn't come to the public sector, we hear a lot of appeals. Some we confirm, some we deny, and it never becomes in the media, because that's not the purpose. The purpose is it comes before the board, and we have laws that we have to abide by and uphold and be fair, so that hopefully the best situation can be brought for every single child in a district. And so the conversation became whether or not we were going to be able to have honest deliberation without the thought process being expressed in the media. And for multiple board members to come forward with that concern, this is a relatively common practice for us to go through appeal cases together. It was weird at the time and having the conversation, and troubling, because that's our job. Every single decision that we make, we have to look at the laws that we are outlined to uphold and say, is this something that's applicable? Is it not applicable? And how can we move forward? If we're not going to abide by it, what's the justification? Can this be proved? And there was a lot of thoughtful deliberation in that room, but ultimately what was said, and that was told to the parent as well, that once the decision was made from the board, that will be notified. It was not individual people, because sometimes when we meet, it's a quorum of us. As long as there's 4 of us in a room, we're decision makers together. And whatever that decision is, we don't know, because we're all going to be given evidence to evaluate for ourselves. So in regards to closed session information, in regards to sharing information, the problem becomes the liability for this potential district to be sued. I mean, in addition to other things of, if we're openly discussing and sharing and getting advice from our attorneys of the paths and avenues we have to take, it's ultimately our decision. That room in the discussion is how we can proceed, the different concerns that we bring up to light that we're not allowed to share with the public. We are not allowed to talk about employees. We're not allowed to talk about different things publicly. And I say this oftentimes, and sometimes people get angry, is you have to trust accountability is happening. I can't share with you, I can't talk about the issues at hand, but it gets brought up in closed session. We have a lot of honest conversations about concerns that we have in this district and things that we want to make sure is happening. And so for decision makers who are up here, who we were all elected to do this job, to remain unbiased and impartial is imperative in whatever process and decisions that we are making. The concern of sharing information, no matter who it comes from closed session, is one that would hinder us from having good governance with one another. My concern comes from that, and because of the conversation I'm hearing today, I'm going to make a motion to temporarily remove Mr. Perry from committee assignments for the duration that this board sets. And the reason being is because if we want to continue to be duly elected officials doing our job well, and we are seeing issues with our colleagues, then I believe that we should have a sole focus so that he can be more successful in his role and simultaneously allow us to continue to work together with good governance. So my motion is to remove him from
She is making a
committee
motion.
assignments.
Yes, sir. What's your point of order?
He seems to be proposing a motion to have me removed. I would remind this board, and I would ask our attorneys that pursuant to our policy regarding this, we are supposed to, if it involves anything other than just simply a censure, there is a formal disciplinary process outlined in Robert's Rules of Order that we must follow, and not something we just do haphazardly. Am I correct, Mr. Blanchard, Mr. Kromke?
Could you please clarify, sirs?
To be honest with you, you caught me off guard right here. I got my Robert's Rules out to start to look through for that. And I don't know the answer right off the top of my head.
I asked you the same question.
Yeah, I was going to say that in the earlier, we had a censure motion earlier, and in that instance, no disciplinary action was, and I understand there's a difference of opinion on that, but by and large, there was no disciplinary action. There was no, right. The only thing that's expressed is disapproval with somebody's conduct, which the other board members have an absolute First Amendment right to express. The assignment of committee posts is as we have it now, essentially discretionary with the board chair. And I'm trying to think of a roundabout way to express the desire for that. I think the short of that, the board members could say, hey, I would encourage the chair to take corrective action such as X, Y, or Z, and
Well, then,
leave it
Madam
to the
Chair, I
discretion.
remove my motion, but I would absolutely encourage the chairwoman to remove my colleague from committee assignments with the purpose of understanding we have to be able to work in good governance together. And whenever we are concerned with open dialogue, which is unbiased open dialogue to uphold the laws that we were elected to follow, I think it's a problem for this board. And so I would highly encourage you to remove him from committee assignments. Thank you.
Was that a motion?
No, she withdrew her motion. Well, I wanted to make sure everybody had an opportunity to speak as well.
I would like to make a motion.
Okay, Ms. Bradford, go ahead.
It's a substitution for what she had. I move that we as a board, instruct the chair for the immediate removal of Mr. Perry from board privileges to and including committee assignments for the next 4 months.
Point of order. I haven't had my second opportunity to speak on the main motion before we get to disciplinary actions.
There was no.
May I please have an opportunity?
Sir, there was no other motion made. Yeah?
The motion to censor me earlier.
There was no motion made to censure you, sir. There is a motion. Can you read it again, please?
I move for the board to instruct the chair to immediately remove Mr. Perry from board privileges to and including committees for the next 4 months. I'll second that.
Okay, now let's have some discussion. Dr. Merrick.
Yeah, I suppose this board can do whatever they want with a majority vote, but I do think it's really important that we take a look at policy 2230, which is how we assign the board chair assigns committee assignments, and it says it's done each year. It does not say that the board chair has an ongoing capacity, rolling capacity to take someone on and off committees. So we would have to choose to ignore that policy, which we can do with majority vote. But I just want to acknowledge that that is enshrined in our policy.
Mr. Wildebohr, you had your hand raised?
And I'm going to go back, and I know pretty much got a 6-1 vote against this whole idea of a contract, but I think this is a good, I'm just going to keep staying on my soapbox with this. I think it is a very understandable, it gives someone, we've talked about Mr. Perry being new to this whole thing, gives him somebody to bounce off ideas off of throughout that time. And that way there, I mean, again, what is the ultimate purpose here? Is it, obviously it is to help all of us to get better. And how can we do that? One option would be to remove him from committee assignments. Another option would be, like we would do, as Ms. Justice said before, with a student maybe, or with a faculty member, and help them to get better at what they do instead of just, the disciplinary action. So I would ask the board to reconsider the contract idea, and maybe change the wording. I have no problem with that. But I think it might be, if our ultimate purpose is to make us all better, then, this might be a good first step for that. So, thank you.
Ms. Justice and Mr. Perry.
Exactly.
It's very useful in the classroom. He's an elected official.
Yeah.
And so he's, hired in the public life. And it's up to him to make the decisions about how he's going to conduct himself. And as a member of the board, that's why we're sitting here now, because we do not appreciate his behavior. Not just one, I'll remind you, this isn't one or two instances. I say more than half a dozen most likely. And multiple different kinds of infractions, which is covered in the policy that you get. Now, one of the things that Mr. Perry keeps saying, we need a policy for this, we need a policy for that. Well, we have policies. We need to follow those policies. We expect our employees to do it. That's how we write procedures. And he's in a very crucial role in this district. I actually think maybe taking him off the committees, unless you could rewrite, I don't know how you would make an action plan. Taking him off of the committees maybe for 4 months. And having a constant dialogue with him, all of us, and expressing what we need to do to support him to correct this obvious challenge he has with some of his behavior would probably be the best situation. Because I don't know how he could do that as far as the applicant or the official. But definitely the 4 months might reinforce to him the importance of, watching what he says, how he interacts, what he carries out of our closed sessions, and all the other things that we have had issues with over the last.
Mr. Perry?
Since I believe this is probably my final statement, it might be a little bit before we end up voting on stuff. I came here today expecting to have a conversation about the leak of the information about the date and the time, and to a parent who was not some third party, but who was actually an interested party. I'm not, and I realized afterwards that what I did was wrong, and that it stepped outside of the procedure that we have for this thing. At the time, I didn't think anything of it. I thought I was just being nice to a parent because they're sitting on pins and needles. And if I had the phone number at the time, if I had the phone number of any parent, I would have texted them the same thing. Because we have a duty in our policy to be as expeditious about this as possible. But I do admit that I was wrong. So you guys are and the whole point of discipline, at least when it comes to the confidential leak that we are talking about, is will I do it again? Well, as I believe Dr. Barnes can attest to, after we actually had the hearing, and maybe about an hour or so after the hearing, and I was home, and I got a phone call from Mr. Sutton, who was begging me to tell him, what was the verdict? What is the verdict? I need to know. And I refused to tell him. And I said, I told him nothing. I kept my promise from that meeting, and I learned my lesson that I wasn't going to tell him anything else. And what I did is I texted Dr. Barnes and I said, please, can you go ahead and call him and let him know, because I would do that for any teacher. So if the whole point of discipline is to make sure I didn't do it again, I've already demonstrated that I'm not going to do it again. So the rest of this just seems to be punishment for making me look bad, because I'm making you look bad because you don't like the content of what I've said on certain occasions. And some of it, I will admit that I could have said better. I'm human, especially in the heat of the moment. I'll say some things that man, I wish I could take that back. You know, but a lot of this is other things because people don't agree with me. People just want to muzzle me. And I'm not going to sit here and give away my First Amendment rights. I think one of the reasons that I was successful, and I was the only successful Republican to win last year, was people trusted that I would be transparent and tell them truly what I thought and how we were going to fix the school district. Not to just play along for the good of the school board and, you know, and I don't want to be muzzled. So you can take me off the committee if you want to muzzle me, but you know what? I'm not going to be muzzled. I've learned my lesson about certain things. You know, there was a time I lost my policy chair position because I made a post about the Power School data breach when it first came out in January. And I didn't realize, and Dr. Barnes didn't tell me exactly, and I was new to the board, that please wait until I've made an official NHCS statement about this. So I made a post, and it was already out in the news on WRAL, and that is what I lost my policy chair position over, that, because I'm trying to tell the public about what is going on with our students and our personnel's confidential information. You know, Ms. Mason says she's had all these corrective actions. Ms. Barnhart asked her last week when we were talking about this confidential information leak, and she asked her, well, what have you done? Have you tried to take corrective actions? And she claimed that she did. The fact of the matter is that me and Ms. Mason have not spoken on the phone until last Monday. Me and Ms. Mason have not spoken on the phone in weeks. So I don't know what to tell you. I'm trying to do the best that I can. You know, I make mistakes, and usually I try to own up to my mistakes. And I'm sorry about this information leak, but, you know, if you're just trying to muzzle me, go ahead and do it, because I'm tired of all this.
Okay. I'm actually going to respond to that. I went through and looked through my phone in regards to how often I have contacted Mr. Perry, and it has been no less than, let's see, I can read them off. Starting with this particular year, 11025, 11525, 2 times, 12325, 12625, 2 times, 12620, that one's there twice, 12725, 2525, 21025, 21325, 3 times, 21825, 22325, 3625, 32025, 3425, 32525, 32725, 4725 twice, 4925, 41025 twice, 42325, 52225, 6325, 6525, 61125, 61225, 62325, 62425 twice, and 72825. I was, to my defense, out of town for part of the past month. And so I did not have much phone contact with anybody for part of that month. I saw Dr. Merrick's hand up.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to echo the comments of some of the previous speakers that I do not appreciate having to get up here in front of the public and make a spectacle of this board. You've got important work to do, and this is not it. And I was prepared to say I don't want to have a meeting until there was a certain outburst of obscenity directed at colleagues. And I said, okay, let's have the meeting. But if we're going to have the meeting, I wasn't going to vote for censure until I found out last night that there was much more information from that meeting leaked than is being discussed here today. And that just, I can't tell you. Point of order.
What information? It still has not been presented.
Sir.
Would you like me to? Okay.
Dr. Merrick, go ahead.
I'm happy to say that I went on last night and took a look at a video that was put onto social media.
Madam Chair Plumper, I can't hear the comments of the audience.
If we could keep the comments to minimum, please.
I watched the part of the video and I actually had to turn it off. I was so angry. Because in that video, it was said as if it was public knowledge the way every single board member had voted. That is extremely prejudicial information being leaked. How are we to do our jobs in private when it's supposed to be private about personnel or about students? We spent more time than I can believe reviewing that case. We were extremely sensitive to the parents and the child's needs. We were also very sensitive to the needs of the district, to what must happen in order to be able to, if we give this to one parent, then we'd have to give it to all parents. And were the needs up to a certain point great enough that we could give them to this parent and not give them to other parents? And we were so thorough, maybe more thorough than we should have been, because many of us are acquainted with the parent. But to have that information leaked and never acknowledged, and it was not just that and the time and date, there were other factors that I heard. In fact, our superintendent told us at the end of that meeting that there was other information leaked. And at some point, damn it, I just went, enough.
Sorry, your language, I'm sorry.
My language, and I apologize for my language, I apologize for my passion, but this board purpose is too darn important to have it derailed. And as much as I support my colleague to the far right, I begged him to apologize. I begged him to let it drop after that many times. And even in that closed session, may I talk about that in closed session? Is that part of one of the things I'm allowed to discuss?
Attorneys?
Carte blanche, right? I teed it up for my colleague. I said, you know what? We don't really want to go through this. All we want is for you to say you're sorry. And he wouldn't do it. Even after that, I have had multiple discussions. I want him to be part of this board, but I cannot allow the number of times that parents were insulted online, the number of times that obscenities have been used, the number of times that information has been leaked. It's just too much. Thank you.
May I reply to that, Madam Chair?
This is your final opportunity. Yes.
Before I spoke at Tuesday's agenda review meeting, I asked our attorneys and followed the board advice and said, may I speak as to what happened as long as I do not use any personally identifiable information before I began to proceed. I also, before I talked to the media or made this video with Mr. Sutton that was produced over the weekend, I went to our board attorneys first and asked them, or is this good enough? And the reply that I got, and I'm hoping Mr. Kromke and Mr. Blanchard could confirm this, is that as soon as I received the FERPA release form, and they received a copy of that, the original one, not the one they got today, the one that released me from talking, that there were no limitations on what I could say about what occurred in Mr. Sutton's case, because the whole reason for going into closed session was to keep the confidentiality of Mr. Sutton and his son. With those reasons being gone, they did not inform me that I could say, oh, well, you could only say certain things about Mr. Sutton, or that there were certain subjects that were taboo that I could not. They basically affirmed that I had the right to speak openly about what happened. So if you want to fault me for following the attorney's advice, I mean, I don't know what else to say. So.
Mr. Kromke or Mr.
I can
Blanchard.
speak on that. Mr. Perry, you were given a release to speak about Mr. Sutton's FERPA protected information. There was no release to state how the board members voted individually. And I'm sorry that I did not communicate that to you, but that release was very specific. It allowed you to talk about FERPA-related confidential information for a family and his son. And the connection between how the board members voted, I can't help you with that. I can't. I'm sorry.
Okay, so there is we're calling the question. We're going to vote on calling the question. Ms. Bowie, will you call the roll? This is ending discussion.
Ms. Bradford?
Yes.
Dr. Merrick?
No.
Mr. Wildebohr?
Yes.
Mr. Perry?
Point of order, what's the
This
question?
is to end
To
discussion.
call the question?
Yes.
Yes, let's get this over with. Aye.
Ms. Justice?
Yes.
Ms. Barnhart?
Yes.
And Ms. Mason?
Yes. All right. So the motion on the floor, Ms. Bradford, could you please repeat it?
I move that we instruct the chair to immediately remove Mr. Perry from board privileges to and including committees for the next 4 months.
And this is what we are voting on. Ms. Bowie, will you call the roll, please?
Mr. Wildebohr?
You come back to me, please?
Dr. Merrick?
No.
Ms. Bradford?
Yes.
Mr. Perry?
No.
Ms. Justice?
Yes.
Ms. Barnhart?
Yes.
Mr. Wildebohr?
Yes.
And Ms. Mason?
Yes. That passes 5-2. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Madam Chair,
Yes, ma'am.
I would also move for you and the attorneys to draft a resolution of strong disapproval of Mr. Perry's conduct, including breach of the board's Code of Ethics Policy 2120, closed session information, and the breach of his fiduciary relationship to the board.
There is a motion to draft a
Resolution of strong disapproval.
resolution of strong disapproval. Is there a second?
Point of inquiry,
Yes, sir.
is that the same as saying censure?
Attorneys, is Ms. Bradford's motion the same as a censure?
Practical effect is essentially the same, but it's up to you. You can,
So essentially,
depends on what you call it. but
depending
it's-
upon the interpretation.
You got it.
Okay.
Madam Chair?
Is there a
Just-
second to that motion? Hearing none. Mr. Wildebohr?
I was just going to, well, since there's none, I was just going to say, delineate, I think we actually have had, a motion of censure, but we've also had a motion of, I forget what it was called, but it was a similar motion back in the day.
Disapproval.
Disapproval, yeah.
Okay. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I apologize,
Nope,
Madam
you're fine.
Chair. I was waiting for the answer to the question of whether
Gotcha.
that was a censure or whether it was a strong disapproval.
Right.
You had mentioned that you felt that actions needed to be equivalent amongst different board members. And so I'm asking the board why you're choosing not to censure.
I think that
There's a motion.
there's a motion, well, there isn't a motion to adjourn because nobody.
I'll move to adjourn.
And is there a second for that? To adjourn, I will second the motion to adjourn. As far as reasoning, I don't know if that is that germane to the, okay.
I would have seconded Mrs. Bradford's.
We haven't voted on the adjournment.
Right.
Yeah.
So all those in favor of adjourning, do I need to do the roll for that? All those in favor of adjourning, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, Ms. Bowie, will you call the roll on that one? This is to adjourn.
Mr. Perry?
Aye.
Ms. Justice?
No.
Ms. Barnhart?
Yes.
Mr. Wildebohr?
No?
Dr. Merrick?
No.
Ms. Bradford?
No.
And Ms. Mason?
Yes, so we are not adjourned, so. I need,
Yes. And so based on,
so we had a motion and it fell, so we need
exactly
some sort of
right.
motion.
That's why I'm
Dr. Merrick.
stepping up to the microphone. Based on a need to be as equivalent as possible, I make a motion that Mr. Perry be censured for multiple instances of board policy violation and closed session violation.
Point of order, can you be specific as to the multiple?
Oh, my God.
No, I do not need to be.
Madam Chair?
You don't need-
Is there a second?
I will second for the purpose of discussion.
Okay. Ms. Bradford?
Can I get a definition from the board attorneys of censure as it relates to strong disapproval?
So 1/2 dozen of the other. Yeah, censure is a formal expression of the board's disapproval, and, they're worded different ways sometimes. The board's disapproval of the actions or speech or some other conduct of another party, another person. And again, it's, as Brian said, from a functional notion that board member made a few minutes ago about strong disapproval is pretty close to the same. Pretty close to the same thing. It gets the same result. It's the board's pleasure about how you want to deal with this.
Ms. Barnhart?
Thank you, Madam Chair. In the sake of discussion for my colleague to the left, there was an instance with him and the chairwoman to remove from committee assignments in the attempt to address concerns that were happening for not the better governance of this board. And after a direct attempt to violate and undermine the chair, that was where the board came in discussion in that regard. So the fact that this is coming to the board prior to the attempt of removal of committee assignments, I believe that is in the best interest of this board to move forward, to have fair consequences, to say that this, we do not approve. I do not approve of some of these actions of my colleague. However, I do think that the fairness of this is to say remove from committee assignment so we can focus on addressing just the purpose of the elected board official, which is monthly meetings, and having the removal of committee assignments, I believe will go to serve that purpose. But I also agree that by me agreeing to that, I disapprove of what has happened, what my colleague has done in a similar process. And I believe that you should have an opportunity to do that, so.
I'm confused.
Ms. Bradford?
I agree with the vice chair. However, in April, we sat in the same room and we expressed our strong displeasure for the actions of the board member to my immediate right. And I can't be a party of a double standard, where if I don't hold this board member to the same standard I hold that board member, I can't do that. So I know that there's two board members here that are probably sensitive to that C word, and that's why I didn't use it. But I'll be honest, in the last 8 months, we've seen a change in two board members' cooperation with the board and abiding by policies and so on, and they had strong disapproval by fellow board members for their actions, and we've seen correction. This is not a punitive thing. It's an attempt to correct AWOL behavior by a board member, because we need to be about the children. And the board chair has expressed that she has reached her frustration and inability to do any more. Each one of us have had multiple conversations with this board member, multiple conversations about stopping these actions, and they continue. And to be honest, we saw a defiance and a prideful response a few minutes ago that make me think that this may not have the desired result, because we have to try. We have to try. And I strongly disapprove of his actions and his words. So I will vote yes.
Ms. Justice?
Boy, I hate this. Yes, that censor word rubs me wrong, really. I've seen it abused and I've seen it used properly. In this case, I think it's probably proper. I'm going to echo Ms. Bradford. He does not seem to get it. I'm sitting next to him. Last time I sat next to him last week, I was called, well, I can't repeat the word. Not just me, but several other people, after he'd been told repeatedly and he'd made a public apology for not saying words like that. And it's like one thing after another thing. Somebody said I think he asked to list them. I don't want to sit up here and revisit all that. I want him to learn. I want us to work together for the kids. I don't think to be removed from the committees for 4 months from what I'm hearing now is going to be enough. And I hate to have to do this. This is the ultimate reason that you do this, is when you have a board member that is not working with the other board members, in fact, is working against, and here's another thing, I'm very concerned, and I go on social media, but the public things that have been said about our students and their families and other people that are activists, he's a member, you're a member of the board, he's not running for office, and he doesn't get it. And this is my opinion, okay?
Stick to the
Okay,
core of
focus on making us work together better as a board, not focus on being, and not getting the point. And that's why I think possibly this action would be the most powerful in order to change the behavior. I can't think of anything else that would work. So I'm like Ms. Bradford and Dr. Merrick. I'm going to go for it.
I'm going to speak if that's permissible. And then I will call on you, Mr. Perry. We just voted to direct me to remove Mr. Perry from committees for 4 months. I think that the addition of a censure is a bit much. I'm going to leave it at that. I believe that the addition of a censure, in addition to the previously voted on consequences, is a bit much. Mr. Perry, go ahead.
We have not heard, I don't believe we've heard from Mr. Wildeboer on this, but I've been involved with the policy committee with him for quite some time. Personally, I'd rather just have the censor than being removed from the policy committee, because I believe I've been doing good work. And I think Mr. Wildeboer would agree with that. And maybe even Ms. Justice, who I disagree with on a lot of issues in policy, would probably agree that I'm doing good work there too. So personally, I would rather just swap the penalties. But I do want to say that in my recent article with WHQR and a recent Facebook post that I made, that I regret the decision that I voted to censor Dr. Merrick. I believe that the original punishment he was given of a 2-month suspension from committees was overly harsh and was more deserving of a warning. I am sorry that I did that. I think a warning would have been more appropriate. But if I had to do it over again, I would have voted the other way. That's all I have to say. I just think I'd rather just go ahead and censor me and not kick me off the policy committee.
Dr. Merrick, this, I believe, is your last. Have you spoken? You've spoken one other time?
No, I just made the motion.
You just made the motion. Okay, go ahead.
What I do want to remind Madam Chair is that, yes, you censured me, and yes, you removed me from committees for 2 months. So when you say that this is too much, I'm kind of having a hard time with that, especially in light of the number of times that policy has been broken. I think that there's a lack of equivalence between offenses, to be quite honest. And I think that considering that you did both to me, I would like you to reconsider. Thank you.
Any other comment? So there is a motion to censure Mr. Perry. Ms. Bowie, will you call the roll?
Ms. Bradford?
Yes.
Dr. Merrick?
Yes.
Mr. Wildebohr,
No.
Mr. Perry,
No.
Ms. Justice,
Yes.
Ms. Barnhart,
No.
and Ms. Mason.
No. That- I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a second? Okay. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? We are adjourned.